Well, welcome everybody. It's good to have you with us tonight for this session of the living room. And I'm really excited to have Sylvia Sue presenting, who's my beautiful colleague. And yeah, it's wonderful to have her present. I know, I felt excited all day knowing that we were going to do this together. So welcome, Sylvia. It's lovely to have you with us. And you're going to be sharing with us tonight on the topic, A Heart for Hospitality, how we reflect to others God's generous welcome of us. So that's just, yeah, a beautiful topic, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say. So I'll just pray as we begin, and then I'll, yeah, introduce Sylvia to you both and then hand over to her. Okay, so let's pray. Father God, we do thank you so much that in Jesus we see your heart of welcome. And we're just so thankful, Lord, that you draw us into that kind of partnership and you want for us to reflect to others your heart of welcome. Thanks for the work that Sylvia has done in thinking about this and her willingness to teach and share with us tonight. I pray, Lord, that you would just give us, yeah, hearts and minds to listen well, that we might indeed reflect who you are to those around us. So we pray for those in person and for those who will listen to the recording later, that you would indeed be at work in our hearts, teaching us and growing us and maturing us in the ways that you want us to. And we do pray all of this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
So, Sylv, can you tell us a little bit about your family, where you live, what you do for work?
Yeah. So I'm Sylvia. We already know that. I'm married to Sylvester. We live in Cherrybrook. Sylvester's the minister at Cherrybrook Presbyterian Church. I job share with Anna 1 day a week, working as the Associate Women's Ministry Facilitator with a focus on communications. And then 3 days a week, I'm at Cheltenham Girls High School as the school chaplain.
Excellent. That's really cool. Can you tell us how you came to know Jesus?
So I grew up in a Christian family. Mum and dad, we joke that the motto was church is life. And so I knew from a very young age who Jesus is. I prayed the sinner's prayer almost every night, from about kindy till year two. There was a moment when I was 10 years old listening to a Keith Green album, and he says, going to church doesn't make you a Christian any more than going to McDonald's makes you a hamburger. And that really struck me that I didn't know Jesus the same way that my parents did. So I think that was when I really came to know that I needed Jesus more than I already did.
Yeah, that's so encouraging. Did you say that was Keith Green?
Keith Green.
He's so cool. I've read his book. You must have you read his book too?
I have.
No Compromise. Anyway, and great afro as well. But yeah, it is a really good quote. Right. Yeah, he was your brother in Christ in more ways than one
That's
there.
right.
So, Syl, what does a perfect day off look like for you?
That's such an exciting question because we had two of those in the last school holidays, which was really lovely. So we used to live on the Central Coast. So the perfect day off, I wake up early, I prepare our fruit, so usually watermelon, grapes, strawberries. I cook some mini meat pies, water bottles out of the freezer. We take Fred, we drive up to Umina. So it's Ocean Beach is our preferred beach, and that's the off-leash dog beach. Um, we drive to the beach. We have everything we need. We have drinks. We have ice blocks in the esky. We have our fruit. We have our hot meat pies. We've got packets of chips. We don't need to leave the beach. Sylvester sets up the cool cabana. I sit outside the cool cabana. The kids go into the water. He reads and watches the kids, and I sleep or walk Fred. And then at the end of the day, when it's time to go, we check on the My Macca's app if there's chocolate soft serve and if the soft serve machine is working at either Umina or McDonald's, Umina or Woy Woy McDonald's. And if the chocolate soft serve is running, we will get a chocolate soft serve on our way home. And if it's not, that's okay. We've already had the perfect day. So
I love it. I love how you've just got that all in just beautiful sync. That's just so good.
yeah,
That's how actually I feel like I want to join you on that perfect day as
amazing,
well.
amazing.
So a few would you rather questions, Sylv.
Yep,
Um, so would you rather be able to speak every language in the world or be able to talk to animals?
every language in the world.
Yes, yeah, the arrogant, that's a good one. It took me a little while to think about that one though myself. I was like, actually, that would be really cool to like talk to my dog. Anyway,
No interest.
I think I know the answer to this one, but other people might not. Would you rather give up coffee or chocolate for the rest of your life?
Chocolate.
Would you rather team up with Captain Marvel or Captain America?
That's a really hard one. I think it's going to be Captain Marvel because Captain America is too self-righteous.
Yeah, and you can
There's only
fly around with
there's
Captain.
only room for
Right?
one self-righteous person in this duo. So
That's right. And she's a pretty cool chick, Captain Marvel.
thanks.
Would you rather give up showering or using the internet for a whole month?
I think giving
Ooh.
up using the internet.
Hmm, that sounds very sensible. Would you rather every meal you ate be too sweet or too spicy?
I don't think I can't. Maybe too. May they're both terrible options. Maybe too sweet.
Okay, okay. Would you rather camp under the stars or stay in a fancy hotel?
Hotel.
Good choice. Would you rather give up listening to music or watching movies?
Movies.
Yeah. And this yeah, is a very important one. Would you rather fight, you're gonna have to think about this, 100 duck-sized elephants or one elephant-sized duck?
Duck-sized elephants because I'm terrified of birds. So that
Anyway, I had a really funny discussion with my children about this, and we figured that we could probably kick the duck-sized elephants away. But one elephant-sized duck, that's actually quite scary, isn't it?
terrifying. I find birds terrifying anyway. A
Anyway, we had a
duck-sized duck is
discussion
scary.
about our different strategies for fighting. Anyway,
Yeah. Thanks.
final one. We're talking about hospitality. So who would you rather invite over for dinner? Voldemort, Darth Vader, or Dr. Evil from Austin Powers?
Voldemort, because my daughter would be so excited. That's the only one of the three of them she'd know. So,
That's right.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the only one that's kind of, culturally and yeah, works for them with their age. There you go.
Sylvester would be devastated. He'd probably choose Darth Vader, but that's okay. That's okay.
So, final question. So, if you're speaking today to us about hospitality,
Hmm.
can you share what first got you interested in thinking about this?
Yeah, so I said our family motto was church is life. Mum and dad were really well known in our Egyptian community in Sydney for their hospitality. Everybody was My mum passed away more than 20 years ago, and people still talk about her hospitality. It really left a mark on everybody, which is lovely. I loved having people in our house. What my siblings and I all hated was the mad, stressful clean before everybody came. As soon as I am old enough to remember, my job, and this was before school started, was scrubbing the toilets and dusting all of the architrave in the house. I'm the youngest of five, so I obviously got the job that was left. And so there was a lot of, I guess, resentment and frustration and lots of yelling before everybody would come because nothing was perfect enough. And then everybody would come and it would be lovely. And then everybody would leave and we'd all have to go through the mad cleaning and bring the house back to a perfect state again, which all would have been fine. And then I married Sylvester, and we did our first, like, we were so excited about doing hospitality together. And it was our first time inviting people over. Um, I was so stressed and excited that when they knocked on the door, I was holding a jar of sugar and I threw it across the kitchen and it shattered and there was sugar and glass everywhere. Um, because the stress of getting our two-bedroom apartment and all of the cooking done to that level of perfection for just, well, it was four people, was probably too high. And I think I asked Sylvester to buy drinks and he came back with Ribena and I'm like, Ribena isn't drinks, it's cordial. So all of my very high expectations, and he was like, I don't ever want to do this again, and I was like, I don't think I made this fun. So we really had to look about how it would work for us in our marriage, but also, um, why are we even doing this? Is it just because we want to show off our good cooking skills in our pretty house? So that's where all of this started. Yeah,
I like it. That's great to hear that backstory, actually. And I'm imagining that, yeah, these might not be the tips that you're going to give us. There might be something extra that you might
I
be,
hope so.
yeah, not
Yeah.
to end up throwing the jar of sugar across
I
the,
haven't
yeah,
done it again since, and it's been 16 years. Yeah.
very
It's a
good.
great story.
Yeah, it is a great story. That's really good.
Thank
Well, over to you, Sylv. I'll put
you.
myself on mute.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to share screen. Okay, I want to do this. Sorry, I'm going to do this again. We're going to edit this out. Nobody needs to know that I forgot to press advanced. Here we go. Can you see me in the screen? Am I just a tiny little box or am I a bigger box? What can we
I
see?
can see what I can see is you, like a whole of you, but the screen, it's only partially the visual.
Is the screen too small? Because it looks really big on my side.
You're the same size as like
Okay,
the
I'll
screen is
go.
in two,
I'll go
like
with the same size.
divided into two, but we can't like, but yeah, the visual, it's actually we can't see it properly.
Oh, okay. Well, let's not do it that way then.
That was kind of cool though. I've never seen it done in that
I
mode.
practiced this yesterday. We're going to edit all of
Yeah,
this
that
out.
could be really good. Apart from, yeah, that neat, like it was kind of obviously do you mean the formatting of that was too big, if that makes sense?
Okay, let's see. Let me try one more time.
Yeah,
If I don't get it this time, we're just going to go
all good.
um, PowerPoint. All right. So, gospel hospitality. We're going to explore what gospel hospitality means tonight. And there's a few questions we're going to ask. Why do we show hospitality? So, what is hospitality? Why do we show hospitality? We're going to look at some hospitality mythbusters. And then we're going to look at practical, sustainable hospitality. That's our goal at the end of this. I should say practical, sustainable gospel hospitality is what we're going for. But here's an opportunity for discussion. I would love to hear from you. When you think of hospitality, what image or actions come to mind? And we're all going to ignore that S that's fallen off the line of discuss. It'll come up later. Let's pretend I planned that. When you think of hospitality, what images or actions come to mind for you?
So feel free to unmute yourselves. You're probably all muted at the moment.
I remember a comment years ago was you're not entertaining, therefore you're not on your best behavior and your best house performance, but that you're there to share your lives together.
Yeah.
I am aware that for the generation older than us, that it was very much about entertaining. So it was a high stress, high performance kind of gig that people would take on.
Yeah.
I still, after all these years, don't feel confident cooking. So I don't mind if people are coming and Steve says I'll cook, that's fine.
It's good.
But I don't want to be the cook, which is silly because I can cook. Like,
Yeah. It's the pressure, Beati.
yep.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
I'm actually quite distracted by the fact that I've just realized that the word hospital is in hospitality.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you deal with that, but that's interesting to me. I think, yeah, I just think of hospitality as, extending your personal living space and opening it
Yeah.
for other people to enjoy,
Yeah.
be served.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Anna, do you have any thoughts?
Well, yeah, I think it's funny. Yeah, I feel like both of those things pop out. Like I think my automatic images, yeah, are those similar to what Sharon said. Do you know what I mean? The everything looking beautiful, like the kind of the 1950s. Do you know what I mean? Like she comes to the front door with her gorgeous dress and she's just taken off her apron and she's wearing her heels and that kind of like my parents, not that was not that I'm that old, it was in the 50s, but kind of like in the 80s, like they had these big like dinner parties, and they'd go to it with all their friends. And so my memory of growing up would be the parents would have this big dinner party, all the fancy table, and they'd all get dressed up. And us kids, we were shoved off in a different room and we'd kind of have secondary food. And I'd have to hang out with the kids of my parents' friends who I didn't really like.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, there was very much the dress, like they were dressed up and the food was good, but
Yeah.
it wasn't, yeah, it didn't feel relaxed and it didn't feel inclusive. But
Okay.
then there's the kind of the more what I've come to think about as I've got older, about the more laid back,
Yeah.
being yourself and more authentic.
Yeah.
But it's funny that, yeah, that like I do struggle with that pressure. Do you know what I mean? Of, yeah, do
Yeah.
I tidy the house? Do I not? Do you know what I mean? Like, do
Yeah.
I go and make sure, like, I always feel the need to, because the main bathroom that people would use is the one that my children use. So I just cannot not go and look in the toilet. Like I have to go, what state is that toilet in? I have like a young son, so I'm like, I'm not leaving that to chance. So, so there's those kind of, those different wrestles in
But
my
I think that's quite normal respect for your visitors,
yeah,
Mother.
that's fair enough. I think that's
It is pretty horrid.
it is. It's true. Anyway, so those kind of things, yeah, like kind of that idea of, what's a wise level of that, is something that,
Yeah.
yeah, good to think about.
Yeah. We had someone drop by the other day and they're only coming for an hour or two. So I didn't even think about the bathroom. And then before they left, they were like, I'm just going to duck into the bathroom, which is the one the kids use. And I went, I haven't walked in there for days. I don't know what's going on. And after this person left, I went in and went, oh, that was terrible. Anyway, it's okay. It's all grace. It's all grace. The word hospitality is a translation from the Greek word. I'm not going to say it properly, so I'm not going to try. Philoxenia, which is a compound word meaning love, which is philo, and xenia, which is strangers. So we think of xenophobic, which is fear of strangers. So it's the love of strangers. Um, and love of strangers isn't a particularly Christian concept. Hospitality is not a particularly Christian concept. If you've ever traveled in Asian countries or Eastern countries or the Middle East, you would have been offered cups of tea and people would have invited you to their house. Love of stranger is really common in other cultures, in non-Western cultures. But the cross changes the way that we do hospitality. The gospel changes the way that we do hospitality. So I don't know if you've heard of the this worldview model that I find really helpful to just kind of work out how do I understand different ideas or different parts of our human living. It's creation, fall, and redemption. Oh, there's a fall and N again. That's okay. Creation, fall, and redemption. So creation is the way that God made it to be. The fall is what happened when Adam and Eve ate the fruit, probably not an apple, and the way that sin has distorted it. And then redemption is how does Jesus redeem it? So we're going to put hospitality through this lens of creation, fall, and redemption. So in creation, we see God's original hospitality. He creates a world and he creates a garden. He makes a home for humanity and he makes a home for Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. But what's really important in creation is God creates the home first, but then we see that God makes man and woman in his own image. In the image of God, he made them. And this is really key for us to understand who we are and how we operate in the creation that we've been put in. We are image bearers. All of what we do and how we engage in the world is meant to be like a mirror reflecting back into the world the image of the good God who made us. God didn't make us as individuals in the world, but he made man and woman, and he made us into a community, family and community. And he made us to be at peace with one another. So God made us, he gave us a home. We were at peace with God, we were at peace with others, and we were reflecting God's image into the world. That's what we were intended for in the creation. But then there's the fall. In Genesis 3, we all know that's when Adam and Eve ate from the fruit and they chose to live their own way, not God's way. And so, in their rejection of God, they broke their relationship with God, firstly, but secondly, with each other, with creation. And so where it had once been good and peaceful, we often use the word shalom, now the relationships are broken. And we see that in the human struggle, don't we? We see scarcity of resources. And even when there are abundance of resources, we can be self-centered and focused in the way that we utilize them. We see segregation of people based on culture or ethnic background, sometimes based on gender, sometimes based on ability, sometimes based on age. We see brokenness come into our horizontal relationships, not just our vertical ones. And so our ability to reflect God's image into the world is altered in the fall. But then there's redemption. All throughout Scripture, we see how God pursues his people, bringing them back into relationship with him and giving them a good law, good standards that they can live by so that they can be in good relationship with each other. God pursues his people, providing for them, loving them, caring for them. Even though they are more than strangers now, we've become enemies of God because we continue to choose our own way. And so God ultimately shows the most perfect example of hospitality. He comes alongside his creation. God wrapped in human flesh in the person of Jesus. Jesus lives the perfect life. He shows us what it is to be hospitable. He comes alongside sinners and strangers. He comes alongside tax collectors and prostitutes, and he shares his life with them. He comes alongside people with disabilities and he heals them. He comes alongside the hungry and he feeds them. But that's not even the extent of Christ's redemption. He does this perfectly for us in his life on the cross, his death on the cross, sorry. Jesus dies on the cross and he is the atoning sacrifice for our sin, and he restores us into relationship with God again. He binds us back to the Father, and he binds us in community into a new family of believers. So that's the creation, fall, redemption model. And as we put hospitality through that lens, it's really, I think, clear to see how in creation, God initiates hospitality with us. We were made for relationship with him, to share life with him and with others. God makes us in his image. I don't think we can do hospitality without this at the core of how we do it. And I think this is what separates, this is the foundation that separates gospel hospitality from the beautiful hospitality that you'll experience all over the world. It's that the hospitality that we offer as Christians is because we have received it from God. And so we bear his image as we reflect that out into the world. But then there's the fall, and there's a disruption to our ability to demonstrate God's image or show his image in the world. And so I've already described that we see that brokenness in relationship, and we see segregation of people based on ability or gender or age, whatever it is. We're afraid of strangers rather than welcoming and seeking them out. We change the way that we interact. We're not interacting in a place of safety now, but a place of fear. But what has Jesus done in the redemption? He binds us back to God, and we experience and are beneficiaries of God's hospitality. This is really important. We're beneficiaries of God's hospitality. We receive that in Jesus, and it should constantly awe and amaze us that although we were strangers and enemies of God, he gave his life for us and invited us to be part of his family. I think often of the story in Luke 7 with the sinful woman. So Jesus is at Simon the Pharisee's house, and we see how Simon is not hospitable to Jesus when he's there. He leaves Jesus with his dirty feet. He doesn't wash them. He doesn't anoint his head, even though he's an important rabbi. And the sinful woman comes and she sees Jesus's dirty feet and she weeps, and with her tears washes them. And then she brings her very expensive perfume and she anoints his feet. and she dries it with her hair. And Jesus says to Simon the Pharisee, he who is loved much or is forgiven much loves much. And so this is the foundation for us as Christians. We've been forgiven much, and so we love Jesus so much. And out of the overflow of our love for him, our hospitality comes. Because we have received a gift of grace in Jesus. We have received a gift undeserved. We've been made right with God, and we have been given a family, a body of believers who we now belong to. Stronger bonds than lie in our families of origin, bonds that are made through the blood of Jesus. And so he has been so hospitable to us in what he's given us. And as we reflect his image, as we reflect what he has done for us, as we receive what he has done for us, we mirror his goodness and we mirror his hospitality into the world that we're in. We offer the same gift of grace that we've received, not just to people we know and love, not just to our friends in our church and our Bible study group, but to complete strangers. Because hospitality is the love of strangers. And we are only able to love strangers because we are made in the image of God, but because we know they are also made in the image of God. So who are we to discriminate anybody based on their age or their culture or their gender? Who are we to discriminate? We're to love strangers. We're to love our enemies as Christ has loved us. I've read a lot of books on hospitality, and I've never found a definition that I like, gospel hospitality. Tim Keller's an amazing writer. Didn't love his book on hospitality with Kathy Keller. Rosaria Butterfield has lots of hospitality is in her book, but no final definition. So this is my definition of what is hospitality. It's completely imperfect, and that's okay. Hospitality is being the image of God, and through the grace of God, loving and welcoming strangers as we see God's image in them. I think these are the things that set aside gospel hospitality. It's being image bearers, and then because of God's grace and through his grace to us in Jesus, it's loving and welcoming strangers because we see God's image in them. I think that's how we help to ensure that our hospitality is one that is honoring God and not ourselves. And we'll get to that a little bit more later. That the cross is at the focus. It's because of the grace we've received and by the grace we've received that we love and welcome strangers because they're worthy, because they're image bearers, because they are made in God's image. I want to read to you from Matthew 25. 31 to 46. You'll know this story. It's Jesus, and he's talking about the Son of Man comes, and he's got before him the sheep and the goats, and he puts the sheep to his right and the goats to his left. And then from verse 34, then the king will say to those on his right, come you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when? When did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you? The king will reply, truly I will tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. The image of God in us demands that we honor the image of God in others. And the way that we do that is by coming alongside them. We feed the hungry, we give drink to the thirsty, we invite the stranger in, we clothe those in need of clothing, we care for the sick, we visit the prisoner. It's a huge task, isn't it? I don't know if it's possible to do all of that all of the time. And at least for the purposes of this talk, we're going to put aside the justice and mercy ministries because I think that's a huge kettle that we just can't carry all of this together. But that is a huge part of what we do and how we do our hospitality.
Can I ask a question, Sylvia?
Yeah, please.
I'm just wondering, I don't know that I've entertained very many strangers at all. What do you mean by a stranger?
So I think in the same way that we see the question of who is my neighbor, a stranger is my neighbor, or a stranger is someone not in my family. A stranger is an outsider. Yeah. I'll talk a
Thank
little
you.
bit more about some of the strangers that we've entertained. And I've tried to be careful in the presentation because having lived in a manse next to a church building for 10 and a half years, we did have a lot of complete strangers come to the door, and a lot of that was justice and mercy ministry. The way that I've separated out in my head is the intentionality of the hospitality. It is seeking out, and there's a preparedness in that as well, which is a little bit different to the crisis stuff that happens in a manse. The second thing I'll say is I've often been told that I behave by my family of origin as though every stranger is a family is a friend I just haven't made yet, and I'm trying to set up better boundaries, but that is often how I operate. So I have a question I'd love to hear from you. How does seeing God's image in you and in others alter your view of hospitality?
I think one way is that I'm not better than anyone who, for instance, is very lonely or appears down on their luck. It's not above me to show hospitality.
Yeah.
And therefore equally important for me to be humble in doing that and not to try and show someone, which is ridiculous, but to show that, I've coped well and managed my life well and look at what I've got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Beate.
And the opposite as well, I think. So to recognize that even people who look like they have a lot more than we do and have it all together might still be, if we're looking at God's image in us and in them, then to see them as also potentially people that we can show hospitality to, even when we're feeling inferior to them.
Yeah. Okay. It's time for our Mythbusters, hospitality Mythbusters. Feel free to vote true or false. You can just call it out if you like. I'm not fussed. There's not that many of us that I don't think it'll get too chaotic. So, hospitality is only for extroverts or people who like to cook. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
False.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a few ministers' wives in the room, and I think some of us feel like we marry into the responsibility of hospitality, perhaps, or yeah.
But
Um,
it's
I always think it, sorry,
all
I
Christians
think
should
it must be easier for extroverts and people who can cook.
yes.
Not so
Yeah.
much of a challenge.
Yeah. Did you want to finish that thought, Beate?
hospitality is not just for people in ministry.
Yeah, that's
It's a
exactly.
gospel
Yeah,
ethic for everyone who loves Jesus. Yeah.
it's for the sheep. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to involve cooking at all.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
That's
right.
just one of the ways of doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can just tell I've got a funny little story just about Craig and Kathy, who I used to be at church with. So they would have these lunches, after church. And it would always just be, I'm not kidding you, like they'd get these two kind of crock pots and it was canned soup, and just bread rolls from across the road. And it was fine. Like it absolutely worked well. And it was so fun. It took me quite a while to realize that they're actually really into food. Like, and they're both actually good at cooking, and actually, yeah, real foodies. And they just did it on purpose. And we were in Drummoyne, which everyone's pretty fancy or whatever. And it was so like when I worked it out, like I was like, oh my goodness, like it was actually a completely intentional thing
Yeah.
is just to make it so accessible. And so then they could, yeah, kind of then let other people know, look, you can do this too.
Yeah.
And it was completely taking the ego out of it as well, because it was literally canned soup,
Yeah.
which, not that many people really eat canned soup. Anyway, so yeah, that they did that for years.
Yeah. That's amazing. I joke that, I mean, it's partly true, but I leave my laundry basket out in the lounge room because I want to model that this is something that anybody can do. It doesn't have to be perfect. Um, what do you do if you're an introvert and you're recognizing the spiritual practice or the responsibility to offer hospitality? What do you do? Does anybody have any thoughts or suggestions?
So you manage your own energy. So surprise is not helpful if you're already taxed.
Yeah.
But deliberately planning times of hospitality can work. So having a particular day that you're going to invite people over and not necessarily accommodating drop-in kind of extra people.
Mm.
And also being careful afterwards to not be trying to do big social events when you've got other things already decreasing your capacity to manage.
Yeah. Yeah. We do quite a bit of hospitality in our home, and we've got a number of um, neurodiverse kids. And one of the things we've had to work out is we can't do the pace that we were doing when they were much younger. They're also a little bit older, so we need to give them some space and some balance. Um, they're very extroverted. They get their energy from being around other people. But we also make sure that they know that they've got space that they can retreat to. Um, for Sylvester and I, we do what Sharon described. We have days that are our hospitality days, and then days that are not hospitality days, which is a little bit easier to manage when you're not in a manse besides the church, sharing a driveway with the church. One of the ways that we managed that when we moved to the Central Coast, where we had a lot of people, just church members dropping by quite regularly on the door, was just to say, Thursday morning tea, anybody can come between 10 and 12 and there'll be a cup of coffee and some cake. And we just kind of funneled people in at a time that worked for us. And we chose Thursdays because we had nothing on Thursday. Sylvester would usually finish his sermon Thursday afternoon and he'd be okay doing that. And I would just crash for the rest of the day. And that was what I needed before Friday, which was our day off. So I could rest well on our day off. So that was how we managed it. Everybody's always surprised when I say I'm an introvert, but I am. Um, I I'll come to the point about it doesn't have to be around food, but I just want to flag that when Jesus is with the woman at the well, he asks her for a drink. She doesn't give him a drink, but she's very hospitable in the way that she engages with him. Then she asks Jesus for a drink, and he doesn't give her a drink, but they keep talking. The hospitality there, the love of stranger there, was actually in communication and relationship and fellowship and theological debate. It wasn't at all in providing the water that they had each asked of the other. So it's not necessarily about providing food. Next one, hospitality.
Can I add something, Sylvia?
Yes, please do.
We do a lot of hospitality in our home, but we also have quite a few structures set up, and we have done different things over the years. But I am an extrovert and I love having people in my house, but I find the process incredibly stressful. And I've been doing it for so many years. You'd think that I would have learnt how to make it less stressful. But one of the things that I do is, particularly if we've got new people, well, that we do if we've got new people at church and we invite them over for lunch, I will always invite an old family or somebody that I know really well. And particularly, it's much, much easier if I have someone who I'm actually a good friend with, and they will walk in and they will find my bowls and my serving utensils and make cups of tea, and I don't have to ask them to do it. Like they just walk into my kitchen and make themselves at home. And I find having someone like that there, just I find I find the burden of welcoming people, giving them all my attention, listening intentionally, and preparing food. If I don't have a sort of a buddy, it just I find that bit very stressful. Whereas if I'm completely ready to go and I can actually sit and engage with people, I just don't want them to feel like I'm not giving them my attention. So yeah, I try and craft quite deliberately who is coming when I've got new people, so that hopefully I can invite a family with little kids, so that or people with things in common, so that I can help them form their own relationships, because I'm never going to be best buddies with every new person who walks through the door,
Yeah.
but I can help them make connections with similarly minded people. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I love that. Thanks, Jenny.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That's one of the principles in Sam Chan's book, How to Share the Gospel and Not Be That Guy, or How to
Yeah.
Please Not Be That Guy, is try to bring like-minded people together.
Yeah.
Hospitality is about a clean or beautiful home. It's not.
False.
False.
Go ahead, Viati.
When we were travelling at one stage, we were invited into someone's home and they didn't know us. And everything, their house was being remodeled and there was mess everywhere. And it really struck me that they didn't even apologise. And I thought that was beautiful, because we often apologise, which is kind of like saying, I usually live in a really neat house and I'm so sorry you have to see this, but it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I was really blown away by what a mess their house was, but how happy they were to have us there.
Yeah.
And it was simple food and we had the best time because they were interested in us and we got to know them. So it showed me that almost stressing about the house was ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a beautiful place for the fancy dinner parties that Anna was describing earlier. But for the hospitality that we're doing, that's gospel centered and gospel focused hospitality, or cross shaped hospitality, it's not about the home. And I think it is good for us not to idolize having a good and perfect, the block winning house home, because mansions in heaven, we have a true home that's coming. So we're looking to that, and this home is good, and it provides a wonderful blessing, and it allows us to bless others. I like a beautiful space in my home, but we want our homes to be functional. And if the priority is a beautiful home or a clean home, you won't be inviting families over. You we developed a mantra. We had a baby who was, she'd just burp up milk, but we started our hospitality to families, and started this mantra of, we like people more than we like our stuff. And that has served us very well, because even if we did clean the house perfectly, it would not stay clean. We had one family come over and I'd made a beautiful pomegranate salad, and there was pomegranate smushed into our white and blue rug. And as I was cleaning it, I was like, we love people more than we love our stuff. It's not about the clean house or the home. It's about spending the time with people. Hospitality is only for friends or people like us. Thanks, Sheree. That was another note. Sharon, were you going to say something?
Well, that's not really hospitality if it's for only our friends or people like us, because that's for some kind of benefit that we're getting from it, like advancement of some kind, which is that old entertaining idea. You do it to impress the boss or the colleagues or the people who need to be impressed.
Yeah. We used to do so we've always felt like we're cross-cultural missionaries wherever we go to church. My husband is Chinese, I'm Egyptian. We've been in predominantly Anglo churches where we've served. And we had Christmas the year, when we were in Woy Woy, every Christmas we would open our home and just say, anybody who doesn't have family, nearby, or if you do have family nearby but you don't want to cook for them, just bring them over, and we would have a whole bunch of people over on Christmas Day. The Christmas of COVID, so 2020 Christmas, we had two anti-vaxxers who weren't allowed to see their children and grandchildren because they weren't vaccinated. We had another couple who were also unvaccinated and weren't allowed to see their extended family because of that. We had one guy who's single and was always a little bit weird, but he was with us every Christmas. We had a homeless Aboriginal woman who used to come and knock on our house all the time and became a friend. She wasn't a Christian. We had a lovely older lady in our congregation, my dad, and then my husband and our three kids. And it was probably one of the funnest Christmas lunches we'd ever had. The discussion was interesting. We kept our friend, who was this older lady in our church, we tried to keep her safe and seated her far away from the anti-vaxxers so that her family wouldn't ban her from coming to see them in a few days. None of us agreed on anything political. Some QAnon stuff coming up in the discussion, and it was a delight because hospitality is not for just our friends or people who are like us. And you don't even need to leave your local church to find people who are strangers or disagree with you on things. Just look for them in your own church and be the better for it. See the body of Christ united more for it. Only the wealthy can be hospitable.
False.
I love the canned soup story, Anna. That's great. I think there's a tension here in that we can do hospitality whether or not we have wealth, and we can do it well and generously. We can be able to kind of spread on our generosity and our hospitality by using canned soup and things like that. But I think there is also needs to be a recognition that our hospitality is going to cost us something, and something great, because the model that we have as image bearers and that we are reflecting is of a God who became flesh and laid down his life for us at great cost, giving up all of his riches in heaven to walk on earth. When after my mum passed away, and I used to be Dad's person that he would get to host all the people now that mum was gone. So we were going to make some lamb koftas, and we were at the shops, and I said to him, Dad, the lamb mince with the 20% fat is cheaper than the one with the 10% fat. So I'm going to get, that one. And he was like, but what's the one you use when you make it at home? The 10% fat. He's like, well, get the 10% fat. And I'm like, but it's going to be this much more money. And he was like, if we're going to eat the best, we're going to offer the best to our guests. And that was a really good model for me of not being stingy, being really generous with the way that we serve. I'm going to have another example of this for you later, a picture of it for you later. But because this year I was between jobs for a little while, it was about 2 months where I was missing my primary paycheck. And I was stressing about how are we going to start Bible studies again. Sunday Bible study, we always host a lunch. How am I going to do this well? And as I was walking to the shops, I thought, Lord, please provide. And I got 4 chickens for $3 each. And God just provides. I keep praying this prayer that God will allow me to be generous in my hospitality. And he keeps being generous. And so I think part of this mirroring mirroring God's image into the world is trusting in his provision. We see how he provided for the Israelites all throughout history. If he provided for them, he'll provide for us as we reflect his image into the world. The end goal of hospitality is evangelism.
No.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I suppose the tricky thing there is that will you only do it if the person is likely to become a Christian, or will you keep loving them when they've rejected Jesus over and over again? I think that's a really hard tension sometimes. We can get so focused on the relationship for the purpose of evangelism versus the relationship for the person of just loving that person.
Yeah.
Because what God says is to love them whether or not they're going to reject him or are rejecting him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think people know when they're gospel targets.
Mm.
And I've heard people who haven't become Christians speak very sadly about thinking they had friends when they did go to church, but as soon as they left, nobody was in contact with them, nobody cared. And that hit me really hard. I thought, well, what else would they think if someone's been interested in you, but when you stop coming to events or whatever, you're no longer interested in them? You would think you were just a gospel target. So I've been very aware of myself, whether I'm thinking of someone as a gospel target or whether I'm really loving them in God's grace. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'd say it depends on how you define evangelism,
Yeah.
like I think that's what it comes down. 'Cause in some ways I would say, yes, I agree,
Yeah.
but I don't think you necessarily have to think of evangelism as being, well, let's all sit down and do two ways to live now that, we're having our coffee and cake. Like I think evangelism is a much broader idea, I think, isn't it? Which is, like imaging God, isn't it?
Yeah.
As you were saying earlier, Sylvan, sharing Jesus, whether that's, like obviously more directly sometimes, but sometimes it is I don't know. I think I just find all that kind of idea of evangelism and pre-evangelism. I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting cranky in my old age, but I just think it's really false. Do you know what I mean? Like I actually don't know that there is evangelism and pre-evangelism. Like I just kind of go, yeah, do you know what I mean? Like I don't know. I just think, isn't it about how we, image God, as you've said, and as we share Jesus, and the way that we image God and share Jesus can look different,
Yeah.
but we're actually doing the same thing.
I think I put this here in view of what Beati was saying of we don't just want to, like, we're in a church revitalization project at the moment. We're praying that 5 new families will come to our church. Whenever I've invited any of my colleagues out for coffee, I'm not doing it with the end goal of getting them into our church so we can grow our church or so that they can become Christians. But it is to spend time with people and to listen and to love them and care for them. And to just share our lives with them. Like that's what it is. It's coming alongside people. When we lived on the Central Coast, in our school, a couple of mums in the school, we were all kindy mums, and they identified me in the first week as their spokesperson. They both wore hijabs and assumed, based on the way that I looked, that I was also Muslim. So I was very anxious to break it to them because I knew that's why they chose me as their spokesperson. I had the best English or had been, around the longest. And so I, broke it to them that I was a Christian, but we continued to be friends. And it just started with loitering in the playground after school drop off. And then I just started to say, do you guys want to come over for coffee? And I can't tell you how many months I asked, but by a second term or third term, they were coming over for coffee almost twice a week. And we were just sharing our lives with each other, and listening to each other and talking to each other. They didn't become Christians, but they saw the image of God in me, and I saw it in them. And we had such immense respect and love for each other. And they both moved away from the Central Coast a few years later, and we stayed in touch. And one of them got in touch with me again a couple of years later to ask me about the gospel. And then I didn't hear back again. But that is what it is to show the image of God, show who God is, and to honor the image of God in others. It's just that slow work of loving people in their mess and in our mess. Look at that timing, 8:29, Anna, and I said I wanted to start the next point by 8:30.
Yeah, that's so good. I was about to jump in and say it's coming up to 8:30. Just wait and see. So there you go. You're perfect.
There we go. This is where I didn't put the heading, but this is where we're getting to those practical thoughts and tips. And the first one I have there is live in your season, because every season is going to be different, and we want to adapt to our season. We want to adapt to our seasons well. I had a lot of free time and had a lot of people in my house when we lived on the Central Coast, and when we moved to Sydney and I started working a second job and a job out of the home, I had so much less flexibility, and I've really had to work around that. So it used to be lovely because I used to have time. And so when even though I was a carer and I was a mum, I used to make sure I had a buffer hour after Pilates in case anybody wanted to get a coffee. And so I would do the Pilates class at 6, and I would be available for a coffee till 8. And that was a really lovely thing to be able to do. But as a worker, there is no time for coffee after the gym. What there is time for, though, is to set up some fancy tea bags and some mugs and some coffee sachets in my drawer at work. And so if anybody wants to grab a coffee on their period off, they come into my room and we just have a cup of tea and coffee or a chat. I've discovered chocolates also help. So now there are chocolates in there. But we can be hospitable in our different seasons. Mums at the park or after school, during school drop-offs, having play dates. When I was working in aged care, there was a resident in the facility who used to buy Tim Tams, and she would invite 1 or 2 people into her room to watch Neighbours together or Home and Away. And that was really lovely. That was hospitality. That was sharing her little space and her Tim Tams with others. But I know of another single woman who's a widow who doesn't feel like she has capacity to host people in her space and just wants to go home and have that to herself and rest. So she meets them in food courts and at cafes. I also want to flag that people have interesting relationships with food and different relationships with food. So we don't want all of our gatherings to be around food. Valerie Ling, who's a Christian psychologist, actually shared an article this week about how for ministry families or ministry workers, so much of their life is focused around food. It affects their health, it affects their relationships, and it affects the way that they view food. So we want to be respectful and to not always gather around food, because hospitality isn't about food, it's about loving strangers. I also want to acknowledge different cultures do hospitality differently. My family and my culture, you know that we love you if we invite you to our house. When my dad enrolled at Christ College, he invited all the lecturers to our home for dinner because that was how he showed he was respecting them and loving them. My husband's family is Chinese and they don't do as much stuff in the home, but they go out to restaurants and they show hospitality, spend time together around a meal out of the home. There's so many different ways that we can do that. So we want to listen and talk and discover how we can meet people where they're at, but also we don't have to be different to who we are. So whatever works within your system, try to work out a way that you can be hospitable in that. So these are my top tips, and then we'll have heaps of time for questions and discussion after this. The first one is be free. You can't be hospitable if you're scheduled down to the last minute or if you don't make time in your life for hospitality. You need to be able to waste time with people. You need to be free so that you can see them and be with them and listen to them. And if we all remember back to our teenage days or our young adult days, the best conversations happen after you spend a whole day together and you're in the car at 11 o'clock at night driving home, because that's when we unwind and that's when we relax. So I'm not saying do that. It's not sustainable. I don't want to do that anymore, but we want to be able to have time, spare time to see people and to be available for people. Be intentional. We actually need to ask people about their needs and their preferences. We moved to Sydney 2 years ago, and my eldest daughter had a birthday party. Of the 16 kids that came, there were 9 different dietary requirements. There was gluten-free, there was vegan, there was vegetarian but could have dairy. There was a Muslim person who couldn't eat anything that wasn't halal or anything with pork. And it just kept going. But I asked all the parents, is there anything that your child can't eat? And we found a cake that we could make that was actually amazing, that fit all of that criteria. So be intentional, ask people, and you can say to them, if you have any dietary requirements, do you want to bring something that you can eat? But the intentionality isn't just about needs and preferences. it's also about looking out for people and seeing the person at church or seeing the person at work who people avoid, who people walk away from because they're a little bit much. And it's loving them. It's seeing them as the stranger or seeing the image of God in them and honoring that. Be intentional in who you spend time with and how you do that and when you do that. Be inclusive. I've got 2 stars there because I wanted to flag for myself that I wanted to make sure we talked about people who have disordered relationships around food, and we want to give them space to have relationship, especially around in the church away from food. But it's really good to ask people if there's anything that you can do so that they feel more accepted or more welcome or more able to participate in what you have in mind. We very quickly learned at Woi Woi that there were so many people with who were gluten-free or dairy-free. We would always have a packet of gluten-free biscuits in the pantry. We'd always have a packet of gluten-free pasta, and we'd always have cartons of almond milk or soy milk just for in case. It doesn't go off. Just keep it in your pantry, and that means that when people come, you can be inclusive. It also meant when we would have play dates and the kids from school coming over, we never had jelly, which is probably the easiest thing to make for kids, but it's not halal, and we didn't want the food to be a problem for the kids. And so no one is allergic to carrots. Well, maybe they are, but they can't not eat it. So if you just have a spectrum of food available, if that's what you want to do, that's the way to do it. Be prepared. I told you before about my prayer for Lord. I don't know how we're going to offer the hospitality that we become accustomed to hospitality, to providing. Help me to do that well. This happens all the time. This is a how many kilo lamb? 2.86 kilo lamb, down from 42.95 to 28.78. When I did the maths on it, I think it was 35% off. We weren't having people over, but we brought it and we put it in our deep freezer. I trawl the fridge section at Woolworths because I've worked out they start marking stuff down at about 4:30 or 5 o'clock. And so you just find ways that you can see something and go, this might work for later. Be lazy is part of the preparedness. We call it the best lamb ever. It's my slow cooker lamb. I chuck everything into the pot. I put it in the oven before I go to sleep, usually about 11 o'clock at night. We turn it off at 7 in the morning. We come back from church and we just reheat it for half an hour and it's ready to go. It takes 10 minutes prep and it tastes amazing. Look up one pot recipes. Make DIY things. Grab a barbecue chicken from Woolies. Don't even cut the lettuce, just rip it off the head or get a bag and open it. Whatever it takes, be lazy so that you have time to spend with people. You'll start, if you ever Google a one pot recipe, they will flood your Facebook. The algorithms will work in your favor and you will come up with so many different recipes. Be accessible. Jenny had mentioned this earlier, but we make sure that people can help themselves in our house. So this is what it looks like behind our dining table. And this was before the kids had emptied the dishwasher, so it's not as well replenished. But on your left, we've got our china. People can use that. We've got all of our cups. We've got our coffee pots. We've got our coffee machine. Under the coffee machine is chocolate biscuits. We've got our water filter, the ice maker, mugs, and then tea and cordial. And when we have people over, we just say, help yourself. That's the water. This is what you press. And people make their own tea. Sylvester won't let anyone make their own coffee, but that's okay. He likes making it. They can help themselves to a drink. Everything is out. You can't see behind the jug, but behind it is the verse, the Lord satisfies the hungry and fills the thirsty with good things, I think. Oh no, the Lord satisfies the thirsty and fills the hungry with good things. We had set up a similar station when we lived in Woi Woi, and my dad, who has dementia, was trying to work out how to get a cup of water, and he saw that verse and he read it out loud, and he realized that the thing in front of him was our water filter, and he went, oh, I read the verse and now I can give myself a cup of water. And he just felt really pleased that God had provided in that way. So we've just got everything out and accessible all the time. We also have a drawer in our freezer with just ice blocks. And when we have kids come over, they know where the ice blocks are. They know where the snack station, the snack box is. And we just like, I don't want to know. I just want your wrappers to be in the rubbish. Go for your life. So everything is accessible so that we can be available for discussion. Now, this sounds like the opposite. I had be prepared to be lazy, and now I've got be accessible and be boundaried. Boundaries really help, and they really help us to sustain our ministry, and they really help us to sustain our energy levels. So when we have families over, we ask the kids to eat at the table. We don't let the kids eat on couches. We say to everybody, when you're ready, just take your plate to the sink. We don't ask anybody to wash up, but we do ask them to take their plates to the sink. Um, I didn't put the picture up. We have a little corner, which is our toy corner, where all of the toys my kids have been willing to donate to this space, which are the share toys, go into this little shelf. And the kids who come over can play with the toys in that shelf. But when it's time to leave, I ask them, can you help me pack this up? And we pack it up because I don't want to grow resentment or regret or frustration that the house is worse than it was, because it's always going to be worse. But I don't want that seed to take root in my heart. So we work on having the boundaries around in our house so people know the rules and can follow them. But we also make sure that we have rest days around our hospitality, and we don't do hospitality all day, every day. We do it at specified times, and we work around that, especially for our kids. And this is a ministry family thing, but life in a manse, sometimes you feel like your space is being utilized by a lot of people a lot of the time. And so we have do not enter spaces, and our kids know that they can withdraw at any time because we want to have good boundaries. The last one is so important. I gave it its own slide, and is why all of my, I'll just go with it, why all of my headings were wrong on the PowerPoint. Be imperfect. We want to choose presence over perfection. In fact, it's really good for us to know that we're not God. God is perfect and we are not. We can't strive for that level of perfection that we see, that we imagine, that we want to reach. I'm not saying give up, but I'm saying just have a realistic view of what is achievable. What is achievable for you or your family or your season or your income. Be imperfect. It's okay if it's not perfect. It's okay if your laundry basket is left out. It's okay if the meal is terrible. It's okay. There's a verse that I love from Jonah 2:8. Those who cling to worthless idols forfeit the grace that could be theirs. And I think of this often when I'm striving for something that is a worthless idol. It is that the image or the unattainable goal of being the great ministry wife or the great ministry worker or the great hostess, the hostess with the mostess. It's a worthless idol. And what am I laying down on the altar of that idol? Am I going to lay my kids down? Am I going to lay my energy down? Am I going to lay down the hope of the gospel because I'm so focused on the meal? In doing that, we're forfeiting something amazing. In doing that, we're forfeiting the grace that comes in fellowship and relationship. In doing that, we're forfeiting the grace that comes from God, who He is perfect and who forgives all of our shortcomings and sins, and who holds for us a better place ahead. So, resources. 3 really good books. The Gospel Comes with a House Key by Rosaria Butterfield. I find her model of hospitality unattainable, but it's a great read of how she gives her life in hospitality. She does have good, healthy boundaries. She's really smart in the way that she does things. And her theological principles behind the way that she lives can be applied by anyone. But I'm very competitive. And as I was listening to that book, I felt like I couldn't compete. So it's up to you. If you think that that would be helpful, go with it. A Meal with Jesus by Tim Chester. I love that this is a hospitality book written by a man, because most of them are written by women. But this is a beautiful one if you struggle to sit in the beauty of Christ's hospitality to us. this is a beautiful one that just I got so swept up in the beautifulness of what Jesus has done, particularly through John's gospel. And the last one is the ministry of a messy house. A good friend gave this to me. It was a discipleship gift when she discovered I was marrying a minister. It is written by a ministry wife. The way that I sum it up is what the midwife said to me when she visited me for the first time after I'd had my first baby. She said, "How are you with mess?" And I was like, "Not great. I like a clean house." And she was like, "Well, get used to it." And that was it. So the ministry of a messy house. There's a beauty of mess in our homes. There's a beauty of mess in our lives, and we see how Christ is with us in it and redeems us. So they're the three resources that I'd love to share. Okay. Wait, I didn't put the question in. We've got 15 minutes. I wanted to ask the question, what small or practical steps can we take this week to make space for someone or to show hospitality to someone at home or at work or in your community? You might want to answer that, or you might just want to talk. Tell me your thoughts, ask some questions.
I'm very precious about my time, being my husband and I are both introverts. So it's just being aware that my time isn't my time. So for me to do something about this week would be saying it's God's time and people are worth it. Yeah. For me, it's more about the time that it takes up than the food.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's made me more motivated to actually clear my head of the busyness and the fatigue to make the space, to make use of the space that I may have available if I wasn't overwhelmed as much. But also to recognize that spending time with people at work during lunch break is actually part of being hospitable. That was really helpful that you've made special things at work so that people can enjoy your hospitality at work. That's nice. Yeah.
There was a lady that I knew once, and she would I remember I was out walking one morning and I saw her on her veranda, and she always had this question, and it was cup of tea, and what it was it wasn't really about the cup of tea, it was an invitation. It said, "You want to come and sit with me? Want to come inside?" And so that was a good model for me, because sometimes I need courage, like I'm so shy. I was like, oh gosh, I have to invite them in. And so even just practicing, cup of tea has been helpful in terms of, once you kind of get over that, it's like a motivational hump that you're over, and it's okay from then on.
Yeah. I've had to work really hard at being okay with being rejected, and going, they're just saying no for this time. And unless they say to me no for never and ever until the Lord returns, then I'm just going to keep asking. Because in my culture of origin, you always say yes, even if it's a no, you always say yes, or you say, God willing, I would love to. We were we'd invited someone over to our place when we were in Egypt, and they said they were coming on that day, but they didn't give us a time, and we waited all day, and everybody was like, if they don't give you a time, it means they're not coming. So I'm not used to people saying no when I'm being hospitable. And so I've had to work very hard at going, okay, well, it's a no this time, and I'm just gonna keep pursuing them, because I see the value of friendship, or I see the value of knowing them, and I want to bless them. Yeah.
What do you think about like out here, it's a very cultural to, you don't turn up anywhere with empty hands, even if it's you've picked some roses out of your garden.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had to get used to people saying, "What can I bring?"
Mm.
Um, Yeah, what do you think about that? Like initially I thought, well, that's a bit rude. Like I'm supposed to be the host, but then they would turn up with stuff anyway. And
Mm.
we often have a giggle about what combination of stuff we end up with when everyone's made a contribution because it's quite funny. If peas are the only vegetable that we can get in our local IGA, then we'll have, six
Yeah,
different dishes all with different peas in them.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, what do you think about?
I really struggled with people asking me that question because it's such a rude question in our culture. You just bring something. So I didn't understand when people were asking.
Sure.
And so Sylvester and I, he didn't get it either. And so we went, we're just going to say drinks. So anytime people say, "What can I bring?" we say drinks. I'm getting better at being flexible in what's on the menu, and if it doesn't match, it's okay. So that's a really big heart step because I recognize that I love cooking, and other people will like cooking and will want to contribute that way. So I'm working harder at actually just asking for a dessert. And but I have to categorize it as something I'm not making so they can make dessert. But
Mm.
usually we just say drinks, especially when we're doing ministry with young people. Um, it's always easy to just say, "Do you want to bring some drinks?" If they ask, but we don't expect it. But we've also learned to not make a thing, um, whether people bring it or not. We don't do an overly big thank you. There's one person who comes to Bible study every Sunday, and she brings 5 bottles of drink and chocolate biscuits for the chocolate biscuit box, and it's really lovely. And I'm very appreciative, and I thank her, but I don't make a big scene in front of everybody because not everybody has the capacity to remember to bring something. So, yeah,
I think it's also important. People don't like to feel in debt to us or to anybody.
yeah,
And I think in our culture that's fairly high, that sense of not wanting to owe anyone anything. So if it helps them feel at home, I think it's a
mm,
great thing to do, to just accept it
yeah.
and appreciate it.
That was another thing that really stressed Sylvester out in our cross-cultural beginnings of marriage, where you invite someone over and then they have to invite you over and then you have to invite them back. And he's like, it's never ending. And it just keeps growing the number of people that we have to invite back. So that's that kind of owing something to someone else. That's the way it plays out. And so in many ways, I've just had to go, okay, we're not going to play the game of, waiting for the other person to back down. We're just going to we'll reciprocate once and then we back down and just let it end there.
I don't know whether it's the affluent culture we're in, but we find that hardly anyone invites anybody over for a meal these days.
Yeah.
They might agree to meet in a cafe,
Mm-hmm.
but we find we're actually unusual in inviting people to our home for a meal.
Yeah.
Is that common?
I think it's very common in Western culture. And now, 10 years in the Central Coast, we were invited into 6 homes in that whole 10 years. And 4 of them were in the first 2 years before we had more than one child. Um, and that's partly a demographic, like we had the world's largest above ground cemetery. So mostly older people where we lived. Um, but one of the interesting things that has come up in conversation with ESL people who are coming to church and international students I've met is they don't know how Australians live, and they're really curious because they haven't been in Australian homes. Um, and I think there's something that people really long to see how we live.
Mm.
Um, I I'll share that one of the things that hospitality is, besides evangelism and loving people, is also an opportunity for discipleship. And it was being invited into people's homes and seeing how they ran their families or cared for their kids or cooked their meals or set up their kitchens that has really shaped the way that I live now. And a lot of that Titus 2 modeling I learnt as older women took me in and were hospitable towards me. Um, and sometimes it was just a cup of tea and a biscuit, but I'd be looking at their kitchen and going, "Oh, that's a really interesting way to set up your kitchen," or I've got to leave at 2:30 because you've got to pick up your kids from school," and learning how people prioritize things or made a smooth exit without you feeling bad, and all of these, beautiful things that I learned because so many families and women were welcoming to me.
Mm.
And modeling hospitality to our younger women as well.
Yeah.
You know that, yeah. So this
And
is
men.
good to open your home, but you don't have to be,
Yeah.
you know, you don't have to set a high standard for them to follow. Show them,
Yeah.
yeah, how to do it. Well, you know, hopefully.
We've got 5 minutes. I've already shown you this slide too many times by accident. But it's the big answer is we've got creation, what we were made for, fall, the way that it was distorted, redemption, the way that Jesus redeems us. But the end goal is restoration. The end goal is fully receiving the completion of what God has given us and fully receiving his hospitality at that great banquet in heaven. There we will sit with God at his table and we will sit with each other. There'll be no marriage, so there'll probably be no enemies either. We will be one body in Christ and we will share a meal and we will be with our God and we will be with his people. That is the end goal. That is what we're working towards. And as I always describe to my kids, mansions in heaven. Yeah, sapphire. Is it sapphire skies? Sapphire skies. I'm thinking of the song, not the Bible. Emeralds, gold, rubies, everything, everywhere. It's going to be beautiful. It will be better than the homes on the block. Every table that we set now, every person that we set time aside for, every meal we share, every welcome we extend is pointing us to that great feast and is a small taste of that great feast. It's just a rehearsal for eternity. That's what we've got our eyes fixed on. Blessed are those who are invited to the wedding supper of the Lamb.
Amen.
Us, what a wonderful privilege it will be. So to close, we open our homes because God opened his home for us. We reflect his image of being a kind and compassionate and merciful God to those who are image bearers, which is everybody. We make room at our table because he's made room for us at his table. And we practice love of stranger. We practice hospitality now as citizens of the coming kingdom, a community where no one is a stranger and every tear will be wiped away. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thanks so much, Sylvia.
Sylvia?
Yeah, such a, yeah, I don't know, just such a sort of a life-giving, yeah, beautiful way to think about hospitality. So thank you for giving us that, yeah, beautiful, broad sort of theological sweep, and then also undergirded by, yeah, beautiful practical examples. So thank you. Yeah, that was really rich. Yeah, it's really good. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining. Yeah, it's really lovely, yeah, to have you with us. Thanks for, yeah, your questions. Thanks for your comments. That's really, really helpful. We've just got one final living room for 2025. Let me just quickly look up the date because honestly, my brain doesn't work very well. It is coming up on, is it the 13th? Yes,
13th of November.
Thursday the 13th. It's the session that was going to be held in June. So it's basically it's lasting the distance. It's all about ministry marriages. It was going to be in June, but our presenters had to postpone because of a kind of a ministry crisis that was happening at their church. So that's Dave and Melissa Powell from down in Albury, and they're going to be sharing about their own marriage and what it's been like for them over, I think it's like 3 decades of marriage and ministry together. So that's 13th of November. So please let people know that one will not be recorded just because, yeah, obviously the kind of the private nature of them sharing about their own marriage and family. Anyway, so please, if you can, join us, yeah, on the 13th. And thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks so much, Sylvia, for sharing, yeah, your beautiful wisdom and your experiences. And yeah, really rich to share in that with you tonight.
Pleasure.
Thanks,
Thank you
Sylvia.
so much. It's been really helpful.
Thank you.
Lovely. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks, Anna. Bye.
Good night.